And so now I am pleased to introduce our presenter for this afternoon, Josh Murdoch. Josh is an educator, instructional designer, and overall technology enthusiast, among other things. He has been working in higher education for over 15 years. You can learn more about him and what he does on his blog at professorjosh.com. And I will turn it over to Josh and let him tell you a little bit more about himself. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're ready, I can go ahead and give you the screen.
Sounds great. Thank you, Sarah. Well, welcome, everyone. Really want to dive into what we're doing today and what we're going to learn about. And really, when I started to think about what I wanted to talk about, I thought about what I really wanted to showcase to my own faculty when I work with them as an instructional designer. So what I want to talk with them about, what I want to cover, especially related to technology. So all those things become very important, and I really wanted to make sure to focus on what's probably most important for everyone to learn about. So again, Josh Murdoch. I'm instructional designer, faculty, blogger at Valencia College here in Orlando, Florida. So hopefully we don't get any afternoon storms as we go through this. Also, I want to point out I'm a big Twitter user, so I wanted to have a hashtag for this. So if you want to tweet along, hashtag Quality Rocks. I figured that would be a great hashtag as we go throughout this. So a little more about who I am, and just to get a feel about me personally, I always like to share that. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a technology geek. I am definitely, into whatever's going on with startups, technology. I'm a Startup Weekend EDU organizer. I organize Florida BlogCon with another group of teams. So a lot of different things fall on my plate, but all of them relate back to technology in some way, and really want to help with that. So now I want to talk about one other thing. So as we're kind of going along and looking at this, I want you to tweet. So easily, if you look at mine is at Professor Josh, pretty easy. Don't forget SoftChalk, at SoftChalk and at QOM programs. So reach out to them and definitely check out the Quality Rocks. So make sure to tweet people as we're going along, ask questions. I can always follow up with questions later on as well. And don't forget, ask questions in the question box. I'll try to peek over there as we're going along too. But this is a great way to reach out to me and connect with me online through Twitter and share what's going on. So I just wanted to kind of put this up as an elements chart, elements of technology. I think it's a cool idea, right, to look at technology in all its different realms, from social, the web, to cloud computing. All these different things come together. And when we start looking at these, how they come together, we really have to figure out how they'll work with our course, how they'll work with learning, and I always like to say how they can engage, excite, and educate students. So those are the three elements I always like to kind of chime into any class I'm working with and help faculty understand how they can work with this too. And as we go through these, feel free to ask questions or reach out with other ideas and things like that. I won't be able to cover everything. We only have a certain amount of time. So as we're going through these, feel free to share some of your ideas, especially on Twitter and those kind of things out there. So I've seen this a lot, and how has our classroom changed? And you keep seeing this over and over, right, at several different things. This is our classroom many years ago. My grandmother, great-grandmother, grew up in a one-room schoolhouse, probably similar to something like this. And then we see a classroom today, looks very similar. Hasn't changed much, a lot of people said. How are we changing our classroom? So as you start looking at this and start thinking about it, you'll start thinking about how your classroom has changed. It has changed a lot. This is our classroom for many of our students. So this has changed where it's new elements of online courses, virtual students from all over the world coming together, people learning through MOOCs, learning through other platforms, learning from each other, sharing ideas. All these kind of things have changed this classroom from being that traditional classroom that we saw in those last two photos to this new online classroom as part of it, and a big element. So I love this quote. It's a John Dewey quote, and I definitely have found this quote and used it many times. If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. So that's something to think about. And as we progress along, as people have been teaching over the years, they sometimes work the same way as they've been taught. They don't teach differently. They teach the same way. When it comes to technology, that could be the same realm. If we don't keep up with technology and keep up with what's going on, you could get lost, and you're not teaching children for tomorrow, where they'll be at, the changes, the way they're learning, the changes from millennials to now a new generation coming about. Definitely something that's coming about. So I said why quality matters. And I'm not talking about quality matters as the organization, as your description, as the rubric, but I wanted to kind of go into the realm of why quality matters for online courses. And I really strive to stress this for faculty. I always kind of walk through and give them, some of the basic standards and go through the quality matters rubric with them and those kind of things when first building a course or come to me and want to improve their hybrid course, online course, face-to-face course, anything like this. But I really focus on why quality matters. Why are these elements so important as learners are going through this online experience? And I always try to point at their ideas of what's going on in their own life, what's happening, and then also what is, this element of, have you been to a website that really was a terrible website and you couldn't get through to pay and you had trouble doing these different things? Think of that online experience for that student, the same effort. Or think of that experience for the student that has that correspondence kind of course where they're taking 3 tests in the semester, never talk to any other students, and that's all they know about. Read this, complete that. And those kind of things have all built up through the years with quality of courses, and people have been striving to make sure that doesn't happen at institutions, make sure that technology can be implemented in the best ways. So again, tweet at Professor Josh, Quality Rocks, so Quality Rocks with S. You should be able to see some things as people start tweeting. I've tweeted out there a little bit earlier on, but definitely reach out to us as we go through the presentation. Feel free to ask questions. As I'm going through this, I want you to take a selfie of your own course in teaching. So it's a great thing, right? Something to look at, something to kind of take in. A lot of times people forget to do this. They forget to stop and think of how they've been teaching. Are they teaching the same way they've taught for the last 5 years? Have they not changed? Those kind of things are very important to start looking at and taking that selfie of your own course and figuring out why this is so important, to understand what your course looks like, what others think of your course. So take that moment and take that selfie and really focus on what's going on with that. So I wanted to really kind of follow the rubric of quality matters as we went through these and really point out some key things. So the tools and media support the course learning objectives, and this is such an important one. As you think about a learning management system, LMS, whether it be Blackboard, Canvas, Desire to Learn, any of these elements, from even outside things like using SoftChalk and other tools, you start thinking about how these really actually support the learning objectives of the course, not just as technology is technology. And that's something to think about. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So as you think about this metaphor, you've heard it often, which came first, the chicken or the egg? but I have a better question for you if you feel like typing into the question box. Which came first, the technology or the learning objectives? So as you start thinking about this, what really came first? When you're building your course, what did you think about? And I hope that most of you are thinking about the learning objectives, and that's really what should come first. The technology supplements this. The technology adds to it. Technology might make things easier. So as you're thinking about all these and going through them, as we're going through, this Quality Matters rubric, as we're going through thinking about your selfie of your course, you want to start thinking about all these different elements of how are you using these. So it's hard for me because I am that technology geek, right? I am that guy that has to be the first with all different things. I had to be the Kickstarter for Pebble. I had to be a Google Glass Explorer. I like to review apps. I like to talk about what's new, what's going on. I like to be the first to play with different things. But sometimes I'm not always the first to implement them in my course, because I really have to think about how they're going to be implemented in the course and if it makes the most sense to fit my learning objectives for that course. Now, luckily, I usually teach a lot of technology-related courses, from educational technology to the courses like social networking for job search. So I get to play with a lot of these tools, and I like to share a lot of these tools with educators and those in my courses and future educators, especially K through 12 future educators that I work with a lot in my educational technology courses. And I like to stop and think about that and think about, how I can really tie these into our learning objective. Is it the best idea? Is it something I want to change along the way to make sure technology fits, not just for technology's sake of having that fancy gadget or gizmo, like I do in my personal life, like myself. So technology is a tool, not a learning outcome. So as you think about technology, it's not that it's a learning outcome. It's what you want to do with the learners, with the technology. So what do learners want to actually do with the technology? So as we'll be going through this, you really want to think about what's the wrong answer to that one. Make a Prezi, start a blog, create Wordles, publish Animotos, produce videos, develop apps. These are all things we've probably talked about, done with our students, or talked about with a faculty member, or have gone through, or seen at a conference and thought were really cool and great ideas. But as you start thinking about really what are the right answers you want learners to do with that technology, you want to start thinking about big pictures, big ideas. You want to raise awareness. You want to start a conversation. Be able to find answers, join partners, change minds, drive change. All these things have become more and more important, and finding that tool that fits that could be one thing. That start a conversation could happen with that blog that you started. Finding answers, can you create a wiki to help find find answers? All these things are really important, and definitely will be, great to check out. As I'm going through these too, I'll make sure to also, I see some people asking about, will the presentation be posted? I definitely will share this out through my SlideShare. So definitely keep an eye on my Twitter and my Facebook, and I'll talk about those at the end. But as we're starting to think about these learning outcomes and how we're fitting in, learning outcome, of course, strive from Bloom's. And I've seen this out there. I've seen other examples, lots of great kind of examples of Bloom's technology for maybe apps or Web 2.0 tools, all those kind of things, from remembering all the way to creating on Bloom's taxonomy. And you start thinking about all these different tools out there, and I love sharing tools. I love people walking away with at least a few new things under their belt, a few new tools, presentations I have done before. So these kind of things are great to be able to share. Hopefully that you're thinking about the Bloom's taxonomy as in I want to I want students to apply something. I want them to present, interview, reply, podcast. What are those tools I can use to do that with? I want them to create something. What are great tools to work with on creating, whether it be Google Docs, Prezi, any of those things you start thinking about. So the next element we start going into, course tools and media support student engagement and guide students to become an active learner. And active learning is so important now. And we start thinking about the type of tools that can really support this and on what some of those different things that can really apply. So when you think about active learning, what kind of tools do you think about? Go ahead and answer in the question box for me. What type of tools do you think about when you think about active learning? So I'm seeing all kinds of great answers come in. And it's so important as you're thinking about these, whether it be something as simple as a tool in the LMS that's already there to that outside tool that we saw in that Bloom's Taxonomy, Web 2.0 tools. All these kind of different tools start adding and being able to be creative with these active learning moments. So one of the tools could be a virtual meeting. So right now we're doing a virtual meeting, hopefully getting this questions, getting answers, sharing things, talking with each other virtually, maybe being able to share video, share what's happening through sites like GoToWebinar, that Collaborate, Big Blue Button, Join.me, WebEx, Twidla. All these are different kinds of tools that have that virtual meeting aspect to them. Some are monthly fees, like GoToWebinar or WebEx. Those usually have a monthly or an annual licensing fee, similar with Collaborate. You can look at things like Join.me or Twidla. Twidla is a great one that's free for educators if you sign up through education. Big Blue Button is a tool that's being used a lot that's open source that you can house yourself or house inside your department. So all these kind of virtual meeting tools really start adding to these and checking out what kind of tools are available. Other tools that can be available to for students, the student or faculty of student, all kinds of free tools such as Google Hangouts and Skype. So Google plus Hangouts has been a great tool for a lot of people, especially people that want to do something quick and work as a group together, work on different projects, group work, office hours. I've seen all kinds of different ways people have used Google Hangouts. Skype, similar, doing that, and then checking out the Skype for Education. They have some great ideas, some lesson plans around Skype, some other things that you can do. So all those kind of things fit together, and there's so many tools. We could keep going on and on and on about different tools that's out there, depending on your institution, what they have available for you, depending on if you need to find something free or you're helping students work together in groups. So it's thinking about those active learning through groups and technology and helping them work together. SoftChalk is a great example of interactive activities, things you can do as self-checks also along the way. So that's an important part, is thinking about that, and that kind of goes into other elements of the Quality Matters rubric as well. But the course technology, having that available, so then you have those students can assess their own or measure their own learning progress along the way as well. Thinking about things that are built into SoftChalk. Whether it be an interactive activity they're going through, questions they're asking, those things are all built into SoftChalk, and it can be a great way to have these self-check moments, that technology that allows students to kind of go through learning at their own pace as well, and then follow up with those. Other elements you could look at, of course, Adobe Captivate. You can look at things like Storyline by Articulate. They have very interactive activities as well. So you have a ton of different tools that are out there that can add to those kind of self-check activities, those interactive activities that involve that kinesthetic kind of approach too. So as you're starting to think about varieties of different tools to use, you should think about also how you can apply them to the different learning styles, not just learning objectives and your outcomes that you want from it, but these tools that support active learning through the different types of learning styles that you can have available. Also, another thing is collaboration. So a good example of that, of course, is Google. With Google Docs, with the Google Drive, you're able to share documents. You're able to edit together, work on a document together, give feedback, do surveys, questions, work on spreadsheets, all these kind of things as collaboration of documents. Of course, you could do them live with Google Plus Hangouts as well, and see each other and talk to each other as you're working on them. Other tools you can do and work on those things as well as you think about the Microsoft OneDrive and other tools depending on what your college has available or what you personally have available as well. So just start thinking about all those kind of tools and start thinking about what ones are being used. A lot of schools are Google schools. They have the Gmail already. The students have the Google Drive already, those type of things. So utilizing those and figuring out how you can work with those as collaboration, active learning. I know some people have mentioned discussion. I really don't go into discussions as much into this presentation, but discussions and seeing what's been read, not read, and going in through that. Every LMS has a discussion feature, and being able to utilize those for active learning. It's a great tool. So the next one I really wanted to dive into is navigation. So when you start thinking of navigation, this is so important in an online course, and making it logical, consistent, and efficient. I think that's so important. As I talked about websites and talked about going through various websites and various opportunities to really kind of reach out and dive into how you would compare it to online course compared to a website. How many clicks does it take you to buy something on Amazon? How long should it take you to find what you're looking for inside a website, inside a course? And I always kind of strive back to faculty about that, and talk with them about this navigation, consistency. How are they going to find their way through an online course, and how are students going to easily navigate it? So this is what frightens me, right? Have we all seen web desktops like this? So I'm sure we've all seen people's desktops like this. Hopefully no one's desktop is currently like this, but it's a mess. It's hard to find anything. It's going to be hard to search out and seek anything and know where to go and where to push and what's going on. Think about this as an online course. Imagine this as an online course and finding that next element on your desktop, where to go, what's happening, really striving in, building in that organization. This is a mess, and hopefully no one's is like this. Hopefully no one's online course is also like this as well. I hope you are starting to think about this, or have encouraged faculty, if you see something like this, how hard it is to find things. One of the things I always like to do is kind of reverse through, walk me through the process of getting to something. Have someone else check out your course and where to find things. So some of the ideas here, this is an example of SoftChalk. So when you're talking about navigation and being able to find things easily, luckily SoftChalk builds a lot of things in for you. So they have that content kind of menu right there inside the module with the pages, with your subheaders as what's part is what. So if I have multiple things under that page for that same one. Buttons such as next and previous, being able to easily navigate inside there. Those are all important elements. Sometimes we forget. Things like return to top, previous page, next page, all those are important elements to remember, and things to remember also as you start diving into building your course. How are students to know where to go next? You're so entrenched in sometimes building your own course, you know where everything is at. You know where you need to click on. Similar to a website, you know where to find something. But a lot of times it's hard to have those elements that you forget about. Similar to the learning management systems, like I said, whether you're in Blackboard, whether you're in Canvas, any of those kind of elements, both of those have that feel of keeping things organized. And you have the ability to unorganize things and kind of make them a mess. And simplifying things really helps out a lot. Making it easy to find resources, course materials, where to get started, what are important tools that they need to use. I always remind faculty when we're walking through the course menu, it's probably one of the first things I do is after we get kind of into the system, we start talking about course menu and talk about course organization. If you're not using groups, why have that in your course menu? If you're not using a certain tool, why have that there for students to click on? It just confuses people and it doesn't help with the simplification. So as you assume these things and assume they'll understand where to go, you start diving into how can I organize this into modules, into units, into whatever way you want to that makes the most sense and consistency. Sometimes I work with many programs that start building a number of courses, and one of the things I like to really strive for when they start building lots of courses, and especially if it's going to be a program that students keep going through, is can you keep them the same? Can you keep them together as you're going into this? So this is, very, very important as you're going through this process. Can you keep that feeling the same for students as they go through different courses and different elements of a course, whether it's a certificate, a program? These students are going to be seeing the same thing over and over. It just helps becoming familiar with this instead of having to learn a whole new thing over. Sometimes that's hard when you're able to do things like rename everything in a course menu to whatever you want. I remember the days of WebCT when people could put icons for whatever they wanted in there. You see all kinds of stuff in there. And sometimes, that was great and clean and nice. Other times it was a mess of whatever. It looked like that desktop we saw before. It really had nothing to do with that learning, nothing to do with the technology they needed to go through. So other things I sometimes like to do with building courses, and this is an example of a course I helped build and was an instructional designer on as we're going through faculty development elements of an advising course. And throughout the whole LifeMap certificate, part of Valencia for faculty, I started diving into, well, I wanted the kind of same look and feel for each one. So every time there was a discussion, I put an element of this discussion icon. And those kind of things kind of help having these icons. So this idea of a discussion icon, every time I saw that, I knew there was a discussion there. It could say discussion up there. I got rid of kind of the icons on the side, but it really kind of gave that same look and feel throughout the course. And that can be really important as you think about that. Other things, when there was readings, I had the element of this reading icon. So as they're going through, it's important as you're going through these elements to, if you're adding icons and things like that, to add your alt tags. What is this of? Why is this there? This is for discussions. This is for reading. It's the element of this that keeps going on and on. So people know what's there and what's going on, but it's so important to remember to that look and feel and consistency can help a lot, especially with icons and what's going on in a course and how things look can help so much if you keep that consistency going. One of the other things I like to do a lot is course orientations. So course orientations really help with that navigation up front, especially the first-time users. So one of the things that I always like to strive for is having that course orientation that introduces myself, but also introduces the course. So as you're walking through, they get to know who I am and get to see who I am, but then also get a walk through the course and some of the objects and places to go, like how to log in. This might be sent to them before they even happen. And then also start thinking about what's in your course. How do you navigate through your course? What do you need to click on? What do you need to go through? Where do I find my resources? Where do I find these different elements that I'll use over and over, and important things to strive in. So course orientation can be really important to kind of walk through and go through with them. Up front. Some examples, I always like to throw out some tools. Of course, you have your free screencasting tools such as ScreenR, Screencast-O-Matic, and text messaging. So a lot of people know about several of these tools. As you're looking into these tools, some have the benefits of not having to install software. They're totally web-based, such as ScreenR, Screencast-O-Matic, and TextMeth you install. Some have great ability to have it uploaded to a cloud-based or download it and be able to upload it in different areas. So for quick screencasting and showing can be a great tool. For a little more advanced, these are probably 3 great tools here that you could use for a little more advanced features. A lot of people know about Camtasia. So Camtasia, depending on the educational price, can be about $99 to like $200 and some dollars. Depending on the price you're going and looking at, but a lot of great options with Camtasia, zoom in, zoom out features, all these kind of things to help with that navigation, show them through, walk them through. Articulate Replay is a fairly new product by Articulate Storyline, the people that do Storyline. Replay is a tool that records your webcam or camera at the same time as screen, and you can go back and forth and kind of have picture-in-picture and really easy to switch in and out. And then there's also another one that's very similar to Camtasia called ScreenFlow. It's about $99. I think you can get about a 10% educational discount if you contact them. They have a form to usually fill out to give you that. So a lot of different options. Great thing about like Camtasia, you can add captioning in, do captioning really easily, upload it to YouTube. If you, depending on the version of Camtasia, you can add in quizzing and things like that as well. So a lot of tools that are a little more expensive than the free ones, but you can do more with them and have longer things, longer recordability. So as you start thinking about this, and this quote kind of ties perfectly with me since I'm in Florida, the need to know the capital of Florida died when my phone learned the answer. Rather, the students of tomorrow need to be able to think creatively. They need to learn on their own, adapt to new challenges, innovate on the fly. So as you think about this, people can ask their phone, they can ask Siri a question, right? And Siri can give them an answer. So those are all different kinds of tools that are out there that have that ability to give the students answers to things. If it's something I can find an answer on my phone, is it really something that you need to dive into? Or is something being able to learn and think and being creative, having creativity, having critical thinking skills, being able to use these technologies and challenge and innovate are going to become more and more and more important skills to think about the higher ends of Bloom's taxonomy as you're going through. So as we're looking through this, students can readily assess the technology required in the course. So we're thinking about this next step, right? And this is what I think of. We've all seen the screen, right? We've all been in a classroom when we're trying to show something and seen the screen. We've all had students say, I don't have this, or this isn't available, or I can't download this. So, so if you're thinking about these different types of things, think about what do you need to have installed? What do you need to be able to show? What are important things to start thinking about for your course? Things that you might have a browser check. There's software out there. There's different things you can take and kind of make your own browser check to check for your courses what's required if you have Blackboard or another learning management system. Bad thing about these is they always update, right? Firefox changes, this changes, that changes, all these different things. So this is just the idea. One thing you can have is, a checklist for students, or you can actually have something that does the checklist for them a little bit and helps them along the way and points them in the right direction. And we all have had that, what browser are you using? Are you using Internet Explorer? Are you using Firefox? Using Chrome? Using Safari? All these kind of things. What version did you update it? All these kind of things. I go through that tech support checklist all the time, and it's really hard to keep up. Some of the things that it kind of helps out in a course is making sure you have the listed plugins they might need available to download, be able to see, be able to check it out easily and accessible, what they need to use, what they need to go into. It's great to have that in your course orientation. Like I do a learning module for my course orientation for my online class, and one of the things I do is like, here you go. Here's what you need for plugins. Here's software that you need. Here's places you can get it for free, or places that you have to pay. Can you get a trial license to something for this class, or do you need to actually buy the license? Those type of things to start thinking about and going through. And it's important to let students know that up front. And it helps troubleshoot a lot of issues. So as you're starting to think about these, you're starting to think about the great answers, right? Am I a PC? Am I a Mac? Am I Linux? All these kind of things are starting to, come up sometimes with different systems, with different software. A lot of web tools, though, are universal, which is great. A lot more of the web tools work across, but sometimes when you start using software, they might not work across the board. So you really have to think about that and think about what they can use. And then another idea is as more and more software progress, hopefully they're getting that web responsive design, that design that changes to whatever device they're on. As the route that SoftChalk has gone, as the route as many of the LMSs are moving towards or have gone that way, websites, blogs, things like that, depending on what your device you're on, it changes that responsive design to make sense. And that's so important with any of the technology you're looking at. If educational technology doesn't keep up with the idea of web responsiveness, that web design responsiveness, it's just they're going to be lacking, because that's where people are at. Their tablets, they have their laptops, they have their desktops, they have their mobile device, their smartphones, all those different devices, no matter what screen you're on, kind of changing towards that and making the most sense. As you talk about resources, have that resource folder for them, what they need to have in there, what they need to access, what kind of textbook materials. Is there an ebook option? Can you let them know about that? Can you give that out to them? Can you look at the publisher materials and how to access them? Do you need to give a tutorial on that? Make sure they have a link to it. Do they need to do a Pearson MyLab login? Do they have to have a McGraw-Hill Connect? Do they have to have something with Wiley? Do they have to have something that doesn't even connect to your learning management system that you have to figure out, how to get these students back and forth between the two? What kind of hardware and software do you need them to have? Think about hardware. Are you having required web meetings through Google Hangouts, Skype, Collaborate, GoToWebinar, anything like that? And do they need to have a pair of headphones with a microphone, with a webcam? Can they do it from their mobile phone or through their tablet? All those kind of things. And then what other kind of on-campus options and resources for those students? So if they don't have that ability, you always love the student that says, I'm taking an online course, but I don't have online access home and I can't get to the school. So where are you going to go to complete your course? Where are the options? That's something to think about when you're doing online course. What are the options for those students? What are the requirements to access those resources and the hardware and software? So we need technology in every classroom and every student and teacher's hand because it is the pen and paper of our time. It is the lens through which we experience much of our world. So it's so very true. If you think about, totally shutting down all your technology for for a weekend, what couldn't you do? Would you be able to bank? Would you be able to get a hold of anyone? Would you be able to order something at McDonald's? That involves technology. Would you be able to go and go access anything, get information? We all rely on technology so heavily, and it's it's our pen and paper a lot of times. We've seen the schools change from many schools aren't teaching cursive anymore. Those type of things are changing as, the idea of typing, as the idea of using tablets, as the idea of all this technology has evolved over time. You're seeing this change. So as we're thinking about it, the course technologies are current is something you have to think about, right? What are they using? What are you requiring them to use? What has been in your course for 70 years? Because it was built by someone else, you don't want to take it out of your course because it's very useful, but now it's not working with certain browsers, not working on certain networks. All those kind of things have become more and more important. So again, remember to tweet. We're almost towards this end and wrapping up soon, so I'd love you to tweet any more questions. Quality Rocks is our hashtag, and then at Professor Josh or at SoftTalk or at QM Programs. And I would love to know, how often do you update your course materials and try new tools? So as you think about these, and I'd love to share your thoughts in the question box, but every semester I want to try one or two new things. And that's just me. I want to try something out. If it doesn't work, then I'll stop doing it. If it doesn't make sense, and I don't penalize the students if something, I said, oh, this is great, I want to try this new highlighter program, that you're able to go through and add things to, and it just doesn't work right as we're going through this and organizing together and being in groups, just not working. So change tools. Always the death of technology is when Web 2.0 tools go away, right? So you had this tool you used forever, and it's great, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Or it's acquired by someone else. Or, sorry, we're shutting our doors. Things like Extra Normal that's happened to. Other tools that have been out there over the years. You've seen them come and go, or change, or decide to pivot. That's what happens. They're startups. They're businesses. They can't support themselves sometimes, or they don't have the funding to move forward. So that's something to always think about. Don't rely on one technology too much. So anyone remember what this looks like? So if you start thinking about what this looks like, this reminds you of a 1990s website. I took a SoftTalk's website and put in a GeoCityizer. So it changed it to what a GeoCity website would look like. If you could hear the background, it would be music playing, really bad synthesizer kind of music, and all kinds of spinning icons and things like that. Don't let your course become that. The design of today is a lot cleaner, right? You're looking at how things are put together and how they look. Clean is very important for a lot of times, and not having too cluttered or too much, and not adding that spinning widget just because it's a spinning widget into your course. Things to start thinking about, also keeping current with things like simulations, apps that are available, sites that are available, from everything from dissecting frogs to lab simulations. All those things are becoming more and more available, more important to use and have available for online students to get that experience. Mobile. Think about all the mobile technology that has changed and it's becoming that synchronous between tablet, your phone, taking on these different activities, completing activities, no matter what kind of device you're on. And then also social media. So social media is becoming, does it make sense in your course? So too, I teach a course called Social Network for Job Search. Of course it makes sense. I have to talk about social media. Other courses, that might not make sense, but there might be things to think about with that. And I do a whole course with faculty actually on social media and the legal and ethical aspects of it and all these type of things. And we work closely with our legal counsel and things like that, and they appreciate the knowledge of what to think about with social media, what not to think about, what data. So that's important to think about, talking about those things and making sure people understand responsibilities and if it's required, not required, optional, those type of things as you're talking about technology. Another thing I talk about is always, like I said, talk about tools. This will be a link to my SlideShare, but a link to a presentation I recently did at InstructureCon called 12 Amazing Tools to Add to Your EdTech Utility Belt. The great thing about this is it goes through 12 different tools that I have used myself with students or have used a lot and really enjoy using these kind of tools. Some are ones you haven't heard about, some you might have heard about. SockChalk is one of those tools that's included. So I really wanted to strive and dive into these tools and let you kind of check them out on your own. So I'll make sure to send that out through the hashtag and then also beyond this presentation as well. So my SlideShare is slideshare.net/JMurdoch3. So that's the only thing I don't have Professor Josh at yet. Wasn't able to change that. And the biggest thing as we reach the end here is coming up with technology, coming up with a plan. Really striving into that plan and thinking about your technology more than just as technology, but how it fits your learning objectives, your outcomes, and getting things together. So again, my name's Josh Murdoch. I'm at Professor Josh on Twitter, facebook.com/ProfessorJosh, ProfessorJosh.com, Josh@ProfessorJosh.com, all different kinds of ways to get a hold of me. Keep tweeting with the hashtag, and I'd love to respond back to people throughout the day, next day or two, and keep that conversation going. And feel free to ask any questions or send anything my way as well. And I always love to kind of correspond and talk technology and what's going on and get some other ideas from people as well. So thanks again for attending. I know Sarah has some follow-up things to kind of go over, but please feel free to ask any questions. Right now is a great time to send any questions you might have, and I'll try to help you out with them and try to see what things I didn't.
Thanks so much, Josh, for your presentation. We did have a couple of questions I can go ahead and ask now. We do have a little bit of time left.
Mm-hmm.
So someone asked, I know that most of your experiences with higher ed, but someone asked, are the tools that you went over, do you think they would be safe for younger users, like maybe in the K-12 environment?
Many of them are. So, and of course, social media you have to be careful on. That's a whole different realm there when you start talking about underage and access and things like that. And there's other social media kind of aspects that they could use. But a lot of the other tools, yeah, screencasting, those kind of tools, a lot of the Web 2.0 tools that might be out there. There's ones that are specifically geared towards K through 12, more so than higher ed. Sometimes higher ed can find uses for them, but a lot of times they're geared towards K through 12. So there's a lot of tools out there that could work both ways. I really encourage a lot of my teachers that are working in K through 12 also, not just students, but teachers to learn about these tools and try some of these out.
Great. And we had a question come in from Melvin. Yes, have you had any bad experiences with testing in your online courses? Like, do you have to have your tests proctored, or how do you go about testing?
I am the strange one, I guess, that doesn't believe a lot in testing. I believe a lot more in actually assessments that are hands-on, like projects and that. I'll have quizzes like for reading and things, but they're not worth a lot. I have more discussions, more activities. But if you start thinking about testing and technology, there's some great technology that has come out there to help whether it's Respondus in Respondus lockdown browser and monitor, or any of the other like kind of lockdown tools or monitoring tools. There's different ones out there. It's just dependent on your pricing, or if you actually have people that come in and start talking about those.
And we also had, thank you everyone for sharing your questions. I'm going to try and get to as many of them as possible. So someone wants to know, for someone who is just starting out online teaching, are there maybe 2 or 3 tools that you would recommend for someone who is just new to starting online teaching?
I definitely would look at the tools that are already built into your LMS. So a lot of great tools that are already built into the LMS, whether it be all your discussion tool, your journal tools, whether it be integrating video or having the ability to do that. Those kind of things have all come about. Definitely, I a lot of times recommend SoftChalk if someone wants to keep something really clean and easy and build a module that people don't have to leave to go take a test. They can do self-checks along the way. I recommend it as SoftChalk. We have a college-wide license for our users here at Valencia, so definitely, we tell them, hey, make sure to, try this out. And this is a tool that you don't have to know how to do HTML behind the scenes and things like that. But there's so many different tools that are out there. It's just really, I would always reach out to other people in your discipline and what's going on and what's happening in your course, and then make sure to talk with them about that. And talk with an instructional designer if you have one, or instructional technologist at your campus, and get ideas from them. Talk with other faculty. That's where you get the most ideas.
Right, and like Josh mentioned, SoftChalk is extremely easy to use. We do offer a free 30-day trial, so if anyone is interested in starting online courses and don't really know what to start, you can check out our free 30-day trial and get a better feel of SoftChalk. So another question. Oops, sorry, I just had it. So someone asked about audio discussions. So you mentioned most LMSs do have a discussion board, but how do you feel about doing audio discussions in an online course?
I've seen video discussions on that. You do have to be careful with ADA with audio discussions, depending on if you do have that student in there that that has the auditory disability, that are some they need some kind of they would actually need some kind of script or something like that that a screen reader could easily read. For those that are have a visual impairment, they could have, but it would be hard for the opposite way if someone is supposed to interact with the class and they have, audio discussion. But there are a lot of different tools out there that kind of have some neat ideas, like VoiceThread. There's other, of course, video. Like I've used video before for my courses, for just my weekly announcements and things like that. And that could be even used if you wanted to kind of leave feedback for students and things. You just have to, weigh of what you're doing and have that alternative arrangement ready in case you do have that student that comes in your class that needs that, that needs the different arrangement made.
Right. So someone, Jan, mentions she sees the pen drawing on your slide and asks, do you use LiveScribe Pencasts as one of your texts? And what is your opinion on Pencasts for those who don't have video technology?
So I don't actually use that. I don't use LiveScribe. I have an app called Procreate I use for drawing. That's my thing. If you've seen my Twitter account, you see me post in my blog. You'll see me post sketches every once in a while of events and things going on. But I actually, if you think about another good tool that you could use, it would be EduCreations. And they're one of the tools that you can draw and plan lessons out and things like that. So similar to the same idea, as the idea of going through maybe a pencast, but it would be voiced right on a tablet, and you could have a stylus and just kind of draw on there and walk through and create different elements and bring in elements. I do like that. But I know the pen fly scribe and things a lot of teachers have used as different ways to take notes and help those, especially if someone needs a note taker in class or anything like that. That could be an extra way to add to that really help the auditory learners as they're going through and finding information, and the visual people. And both of those could really help and enhance a class or a good way to add notes. So I know a lot of math teachers that use those a lot of times.
And we did have another question come in from Kathleen. Jillian, if you're still on the line with us, this question kind of has to do with Quality Matters. And she asks, what does QM think about tracking student data on social media? And
I guess I'll answer that. I mean, the biggest thing is you have to start thinking of, you have to make sure you're meeting the FERPA requirements. But think about anything that you use. You have to think about how you're going to track and how you're going to keep a record of that. So there's various different ways you could keep records of that, but that's something to think about. And depending on your school's policy, our school really doesn't have, our college doesn't have a policy on social media. They strive into other student code of conducts and other policies that we already have, but we also want to talk about what are some things to think about then when you're using other software or other technologies that are outside the college, or if they're public view versus private view versus all those kind of things.
Great, and Brenda actually just mentioned in the chat that QM will have a new standard that will address social media in their upcoming rubric, which will release soon. So thanks, Brenda, for pointing that out. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and take the screen back. Josh, thank you so much for your presentation. This was great.
You're welcome.
And I'm just going to take the screen back and share with people how they can learn a little bit more. So the examples that Josh shared today and that we've been sharing throughout this whole series just represent how these presenters took a specific QM standard or multiple standards and adapted it into their own practices that best fit their unique situation. So we encourage everyone to share your own best practices, like Josh had been mentioning this whole time, to tweet at us or via email. We had been using the hashtag SCQMBP for this best practice campaign, but we'll continue to follow the Quality Rocks hashtag. If you wanted to continue tweeting using Quality Rocks, that would be great as well. And you never know, we might end up sharing some of these best practices at our user conference in the fall. So we do have another webinar scheduled in August, which is going to be Monday, August 4th, on incorporating assessment and measurement tools into your online course. So you can go ahead and register for that now. If you visit our best practices page, I'll share this link in the chat area so you don't have to copy down that URL. And we do have one more webinar planned in September before the conference that will also incorporate another QM standard also. Oops. So for more information on today's presentation, you can contact Josh, Josh at ProfessorJosh.com. Follow him on Twitter, as he mentioned before. You can go to qualitymatters.org or tweet at QM program. You can go to softchalk.com or tweet at us at softchalk, or you can send us an email at learnmore@softchalk.com if you have any questions specific to SoftChalk. As I mentioned, we do have a free 30-day trial if anyone is interested who is not familiar with SoftChalk. So again, I just want to thank Josh and thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and I hope everyone has a great day. And as I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, and everyone should be receiving a link to the recording by the end of this week to your email. So thanks again, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.